You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Chrissy, and joining me is my co-host, Thad. Thad, how are you doing today?
Just wondering how long it will be until the next time I have to sacrifice a child to keep my society going, but other than that, I'm fine.
That's a good question. I've been wondering that myself.
Well, does that make it, better? If it's only once every 10 years, is it more okay than if it's once a year?
Wow, that's even less time than I was thinking. I was kind of like, maybe it's once every generation? Maybe? God, yeah. All right, we'll get into that, because how often that needs to happen is an issue. But before we get into this week's episode of Strange New Worlds, we would just like to thank all of our Patreon patrons who make our show possible, particularly Justin Oser, who's one of our associate producers. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5, you can join our Meetings of the Hive Mind on the second Saturday of each month. Watch your Patreon messages for details. So, today we're going to just jump right into our topic of the Strange New World episode, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. First thing that bothers me about that title, it should be Lift Us to Where Suffering Cannot Reach, but that's okay. Other than grammatical errors, Thad, what's your first thoughts about this episode?
Well, it's a long title. It's in the same sort of realm as For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, or
Yes.
The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. This is a heavy episode.
Very.
I said the premiere was heavy, but this is, takes that to a whole new level. We were talking before we started recording, most of these episodes, all of these episodes, because we are doing a podcast, I watch multiple times before we start talking about them. This episode is probably the first one that I would not have ordinarily wanted to watch it again until, a lot of time had passed.
Yeah.
Not to say it's a bad episode, but that it is a heavy episode. The ending is a little hard to take, and it's a good episode of Star Trek, but it is not something I would throw on I'm going to watch Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, let's watch this heavy episode about whether or not a child needs to die. Oh, but we don't know that till the very end. Okay.
I say that, but I'll put on some of the really darkest DS9 episodes just for fun. So who knows? That's
like watching maybe Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan or something as entertainment. I could see that more than this one. Because this one was heavy philosophically.
Yes.
I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get a discussion from Spock about the needs of the many versus the needs of the one. But I'm also kind of glad they didn't do that, because I don't know how they could have gotten through that without it sounding terrible either way.
This is not a needs of the many situation, because they don't have to live in this place where the only way they can keep their cities in the sky is to sacrifice a child every however many years or days it is. This is not the needs of the many, this is the wants of the many.
Oh, that's a good way to frame it. Yes, especially with the whole appearance of luxury and lack of want for everyone else.
Definitely, and I'm sure deliberately reminiscent of the TOS episode, The Cloudminders.
Yes, I agree. And lots of other things, too.
Oh, yeah. Some Taste of Armageddon thrown in there as well.
Since we are just talking about the first servant here, let's just jump right into that. So we have this first servant, and we're told they're chosen at birth. That is not explained further. Of course, at that point, we think this is some kind of exalted, exemplary position of look, here's this kid who can do all sorts of awesome science or something. I wasn't really sure what he was supposed to be at the beginning. Did you have an idea?
No, I really wasn't. entirely certain. Like, he clearly knew a lot about a lot of things, and I thought, well, maybe he's just like some sort of like symbolic, like sort of figurehead sort of thing, where, you know, they trot him out as the, you know, the first servant. Oh, look, it's the first servant, and here's all the things he can do, and that sort of thing. I was not expecting this until much later.
Oh, gods, no, not until that very end. I have to wonder, though, what it is that causes that child to be chosen. What it is about that. Does the machine require a particular genetic makeup? Does the machine require a particular, like, is there wouldn't be a full lineage, but maybe a family from which these people come? I think it's interesting.
I don't think so, because we get the impression that his father certainly never planned to be the father of the first servant, which implies to me that it might almost be a random sort of thing. Like, you know, when you have a kid born at this particular time, they choose. And also, the language used, they said he was going to be the first servant, and when the next one is born, and she used the pronoun she.
Yes.
So it seems like perhaps they alternate between boys and girls.
Maybe.
So it may be that, like, as they approach a certain time, because they know how long it is, although we don't. How old is this kid? Like 10?
I would say 10, yeah.
I would say like 10 years before they know that they would need to do the transition, perhaps they check all the kids that were born at that, and they may put them through various tests to see how, you know, smart, etc., or what particular traits they have. So I think there may be specific requirements that it has, but I don't think it's that they're breeding these particular kids for this. I think it's more they take all the kids born in a certain time frame and then pick one of them.
Yeah, I think she uses the term a lottery at the beginning. But I was still wondering if maybe there's other, I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of prerequisites, but
well, maybe it's like the Dalai Lama and they have to like pick something off a rug or something.
Maybe. I mean, actually, there's, without the part of being made into the machine, made as part of the machine, it did remind me of the Dalai Lama.
Yes.
As we were talking about this, though, that's interesting because it reminded me of, here, we'll have a quick unintentional Chrissy's History Corner. The peoples of Italy before, like prehistoric peoples of Italy, had this custom called a sacred spring. And when the priests would declare a sacred spring, all of the animals that were born in that spring were set aside to be used as sacrifices. And all of the children that were born in that spring, when they grew up, they had to go out as a group and found a new settlement in order to spread their culture and such. And I imagine when that happened, it was because the village was getting a little overpopulated if the priests were smart. But yeah, I made me think of unusual picking a time and deciding that children are going to do something before they even are cognizant of anything. So we have this child who's chosen. Obviously, they undergo some genetic manipulation, or at least they have these implants put in that allow for, I don't know, at the time, genetic manipulation. Anytime he has an injury or is sick or whatever. That was interesting.
I assume though that that's for all the Magellans and not just the first servant, because they talk about how they don't have disease and whatnot. So I assume they all have that same sort of medical stuff.
Oh, the medical tech, yes. I was thinking of the particular implants. I think those are in preparation for attachment to the machine.
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong about that, but
yeah, that's possible.
But since we're at the medical tech, we'll come back to the whole issue of the sacrifice, but since we're at the medical tech, this is yet another example of being on the wrong side of the Prime Directive, right?
Yes, and it's interesting because Mbenga says, because he points out that that the Federation has the same policy, and Mbenga says that it doesn't apply for medical intervention, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The Prime Directive, we don't actually see when the Prime Directive was officially established because it's in between Enterprise and this. But there is the Enterprise episode Dear Doctor, where Archer has that long monologue about how someday they'll come up with something like this. And it's interesting that is the first episode where they like established maybe that they need a prime directive to prevent interference, and the issue that he was struggling with in that one was specifically medical intervention, which is why that's interesting, and why I've always been annoyed at that episode, because I felt that they made the wrong decision, which is apparently the Federation Council also believes they made the wrong decision because they allow sharing of technology for medical intervention. I do wonder how far that goes, though. Like, they're not beaming down to pre-warp societies and healing their diseases.
Right. And I think that is the key point here, because the Majala are on an equivalent technological scale. They were offered membership in the Federation and refused it. So in that case, I mean, the Prime Directive, I suppose, doesn't apply from the Federation end.
Well, okay, there's multiple aspects of the Prime Directive. Because there is the don't interfere and don't make yourself known to pre-warp societies, but then there's also just the straight up don't interfere in how another society governs itself. And that does include sharing technology. If you think back to Voyager, Janeway wouldn't share replicators and transporters with the Kazon.
True.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why you shouldn't do that, but...
Lots of, yeah.
But she cited the Prime Directive, and the Kazon were clearly warp-capable, so... Mm-hmm. It applies for more than just the not interfering with developing cultures. It also just applies to not interfering with another society or providing things like that to another society.
You know, the Klingon Civil War being the example par excellence on that one.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the difference here would be whether or not the aid is requested.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where M'Benga's point comes through, because he is asking for this help.
Yeah.
So I think that's where he's thinking of it.
Yeah, and I think that is probably accurate, yeah. But again, that is exactly the situation that happened in that Enterprise episode. These aliens sent a ship out into space to find a cure for their disease. And Archer said no.
Well, that's, before he had a directive.
Right.
To tell him otherwise.
I just find it ironic that they now, that is the episode that when it was made was done as a setup for creating the Prime Directive, and now we see that now that we have a Prime Directive, there is a nuance to it, and they do actually, in that particular instance, allow them to share the technology.
Although M'Benga might just be saying that in order to get the information, but...
He could, but I doubt it. I imagine that's probably because it also makes sense. Like, if
it does.
If a civilization is able... Because we see plenty of times that in Star Trek where they do help with diseases and plagues and whatnot on planets that are not part of the Federation. Like, that's just... It makes perfect sense that they would do that.
So, I'm trying to get through the less heavy stuff before we get into the really heavy thing. Pike and Alora, that's part of the heavy stuff. How did you feel about that being part of the plot of the episode?
I'm mostly okay with it. I think part of the reason they did that was so that Pike would be blind to what was happening.
Yeah, agreed. Because otherwise, to me, it felt a little bit forced.
Yeah, the situation felt off from the beginning, but Pike was willing to accept it because he had a crush on this woman for, a decade or so. I think it works pretty well. I mean, you can clearly see where it's going from the beginning, but I think it does work.
When we saw the previews for this, not knowing anything else about the episode, I thought, because they show up on the transporter pad, I expected that kid was going to be Pike's. That's what I thought the story was going to be.
Oh my, that would have been interesting.
Knowing nothing else about it, of course, and it wouldn't have made sense with the story that they actually told, but the preview... But yeah, that would have been a completely different story.
Yes. That would also be a heavy thing. Pike finds out he has a kid, and now he knows what's going to happen to him in the future. It's like,
ooh.
That would have been a very different episode, but it still would have been a heavy plot. It would have been like Pike dealing with all of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good episode. Anyway, okay, so the people that work for Paramount that listen to us, because I know you're out there, need a story credit here. Okay, that's just little bit of money thrown over in a story credit. Yeah.
Also, if you could get us screeners of these episodes ahead of time, that would be cool too.
That would be awesome. I did really enjoy his uncomfortableness at the beginning, with trying to introduce Una. It reminded me of when Vash is visiting the Enterprise, about how tongue-tied Picard gets.
Yes, that was good.
And then the other intersecting story here that is not quite so heavy, Uhura's security training. This is fun.
Oh yeah,
this is fun. Yeah.
I really liked the scene in the mess hall where Sam Kirk comes up. You can tell her from me that I said you could have a full hour, and she shows up. She's like, "You can tell me yourself." He's like, "I would, but I'm conflict averse," and then walks away.
Yes, I love that.
I love that.
And I love that for so many reasons. I mean, it's a wonderful scene in itself, but also the idea of like, you know what? I'm going to recognize that I have this issue in my life, and I'm walking away, and I'm owning it. And all of that. I get the impression he probably did not have to work with La'an. He had his security training elsewhere, which of course makes sense because he's not a cadet.
Yeah, because he just got assigned to the ship as a lieutenant, so he would have...
Yeah. Oh, I meant to bring up a list of the security training.
The security rules.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 5 of 7. The first one... That wonderful bit that Pike does, a Rogelian tiger pounces with no warning.
He did a passable La'an impression, too, when he said that.
He did. All right, number 2, there's no breaks in security because threats never take breaks. What do you think of that one?
I think that's a bad idea. Because if you're never taking a break, you're not going to be in peak shape to take on the threats.
Right.
That's why you need multiple people in security to also be secure while you are on a break.
Yes. That was my thought exactly. It's like, yes, threats never take breaks, but if you don't, sleep at some point, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let your tricorder do the investigating. I like that one.
Yes.
There's a logic to that.
And that makes sense. Don't just touch things on alien ships.
Okay, so 4 we didn't get to hear, 5 we didn't get to hear, 6 is know when to bend the rules. Yes. That's true everywhere. And 7, leave no stone unturned. I don't want to know, what was it, Gorn breathing stones or something like that?
It was a
Mugatu. Excuse me.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, I'll pass on that.
Don't want to know. No. I really liked that this was another example of a senior officer underestimating Cadet Uhura and having it thrown right back in their face. Okay. Obviously, La'an had not had a conversation with Hemmer about his experience with Uhura. Oh, you did the bare minimum. No. I did a whole hell of a lot more, and here it is. So I like to see that as somebody who's been on both sides of that, where I've expected somebody to get something done and it didn't, or bare minimum was done, and also when other people have expected me to do something and I ended up doing more. Yeah, okay, well that's all the not heavy stuff. So, the Majolans enslave at least one child to a machine to keep their society running.
Yep. The once of the many.
Uh-huh.
So also, we should briefly mention that this is the second episode of Strange New Worlds that touches on January 6th, because there's the line about peaceful transition of power is the cornerstone of our society.
I didn't catch that to make that connection, and I should have.
Which, again, I don't think they meant to be quite... I'm sure that was what they were referencing. I don't think they expected it to be the episode that comes out the week of the January 6th hearing.
Yes. The timing on this is just beautiful.
Yeah.
This is Star Trek at its most Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've said that a lot about Strange New Worlds lately, or lately, the whole time. There is only lately with Strange New Worlds. But it really is that thing of let's take an issue and make it alien, and we'll tweak it a little bit so that it's, not obvious, but at the same time, there it is. I want to know how this happened.
excellent question. Yeah, because they don't even know how... They talk about how they don't... Because they don't, like, it's been so long in their society, they don't know, they set it up this way and we don't know why. And that is, yeah, how do you get a situation like this out of necessity?
Yeah. And it also seems like there's a really short window. Like, you can't, like, there's not enough energy or whatever it is in a battery to allow for more than 10 minutes without going from one to the other or whatever it is.
I don't think it's the energy per se. I don't think the kid is like a battery. I think it's they need the processing power of the brain to like keep everything running.
Yeah. Either way, you'd think there'd be some kind of like backup.
Yeah, some sort of automated system that could keep it up for a little bit.
Yeah.
I also wonder, why do you need the processing power of a brain to power these cities? That is the whole other question that I don't understand. Like, especially for this civilization that is apparently pretty advanced. Like, I don't understand why you need a brain to keep these platforms floating.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like something that is complicated enough that it cannot possibly be done through some sort of automated system.
Yeah. Oh, agreed.
Like, I feel like it's something that if we really wanted to, we could do today on Earth with our current technology. Like, have a floating city. Like, it would be incredibly expensive and wasteful and not worth it in any way. But I think we have the technology that we could do this.
Yes.
Which is why I don't understand why they need a kid's brain to run this.
Yes. And the other thing that bothers me, too, is that they have sufficient technology to go out into space. At least a little bit. Okay. I assume they're warp capable. They are intentionally living on a completely inhospitable planet. Literally, the surface of the planet is just lava.
Right.
Okay. Rivers of lava. They have technology to get off the planet.
They could go anywhere.
Go somewhere else where you don't have to use a child to run it.
That's why I'm saying it's the wants of the many, not the needs of the many. No one is forcing them to stay on this planet. Even if you accept that you need to sacrifice a child every couple years to keep these floating cities in place, no one is saying they have to live in these floating cities.
Which is, there's another analogy there with the whole global warming and technology use and such, you know.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's sacrificing everyone's, particularly our children's lives, as it were, because it is, we're not the ones that are going to bear the brunt of the global warming issues. I mean, we're starting to. It's going to be Gen Z and their kids that are really screwed from this. And beyond that. So there's another layer. Oh, good. These types of things happen naturally. And so, you know, but not at the scale that we humans have created.
And historically, and even still today, we have used child labor to do a lot of these things too.
So that's good, and that actually connects with the global warming issue, because all the like factories and child labor in the Industrial Revolution was hugely important at keeping it going.
And as much as we like to think that we've eliminated that, we still haven't even today.
Oh no,
it still happens. And ironically, one of the biggest sources of it is lithium mining today, which is what is used. Lithium batteries are what are used in things like electric cars to try to prevent global warming. So this works. This analogy works really well, actually.
There's all sorts of layers. I do, as I said, I do want to see why this was set up. I think, again, good short trek or good novel. The thing that I was thinking of with it was the Kaliar and the Destiny trilogy. And spoiler, the accidental creation of the Borg. That's the only justification I could think of.
Those books didn't happen anymore anyway.
They did in the other timeline, but they're over a decade old now, so, you know.
Yeah, but that timeline doesn't exist anymore, so it's fine.
It existed while it existed.
Everything exists while it exists.
Yes! was a good timeline. I liked it. I know you did too.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that timeline.
Anyway, so that was my thought process. It's like, but even that, you feel like if that's an accidental, or not accidental, I guess it would be, but if that's a last ditch effort, then immediately after you're looking for other possibilities, which she said they're doing.
Yeah, but she said they've searched for other possibilities and they have never come up with anything. Mm-hmm. There are so many things that you could do that would involve not having to sacrifice children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we keep coming back to that, because that's what it is. Which brings us to Prospect 7.
Mm-hmm.
There's two possibilities here, to me. Okay, there's one that Majala is their home planet, and they push the dissidents off, who did not like this whole sacrificing a child thing. Or do we have, like, Elon Musk going to live on Mars, and they went to this other planet, and Prospect 7 is their home planet?
Or are both the Majallans and the people of Prospect 7 from a different planet?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The parallel I immediately thought of was Star Trek Insurrection with the Baku and the Sona.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which, in Insurrection at least, they had originally come from a different planet and settled on the planet in the Briar Patch. And I don't know if that's how it is with the Majallans, but like we have these two. The reason I thought of it is these two different groups that we think are separate and are actually the same.
Mm-hmm.
My impression, which is really, I mean, they don't outright say it either way, but my impression was that they were a splinter group of the Majallans. And the idea I got from this is probably specifically because they didn't like the idea of the child sacrifice. They had broken off to do their own society without that.
Yeah, I think of those two, that's the most likely, but I couldn't help but think of, well, Cloudminders, but also, there was a movie where all the rich people were living in cities above the planet.
Elysium.
Yes, thank you. It made me think of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure. I don't know which is worse. Is it worse to push away the people who don't want you to use a child's brain to run the planet, or to leave and create a situation where a child's brain needs to be used to run a planet?
Either way, let's not have child's brains run planets.
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line.
So I have never read it, but this is apparently a very similar story to an Ursula K. Le Guin book.
Oh, of course it is. That's fantastic.
I will admit my, deep deficit in reading classic sci-fi that I have never read anything by Ursula K. Le Guin. I have heard great things, but I have never read any of her books. But apparently this is a very similar plot to a novel that she wrote, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't read any of her stuff either, which is a deficit. I need to do that if I ever have, time. So, but her writing has always been held up as wonderful societal commentary and very liberal leftist, a lot of hopeful, even if dystopian.
Yeah, Wikipedia describes it as a depiction of a summer festival in a utopian city of Omelas whose prosperity depends on the perpetual misery of a single child.
Well, that's it right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point too, because Pike asks Allura if he's in pain, and she's like, yeah,
he is. And then she talks about how are there not children who suffer for the benefit of the Federation, and
that
so
was
the difference there. I wonder. Okay, so in the 24th century, if you asked Picard that question, he probably would have said, no, there aren't. But there are plenty of suffering children outside the Federation that the Federation could be helping.
Yes.
But that's a whole other thing. We know that children have suffered. I mean, at this point, we are like maybe 10 years removed from the incident of Tarsus 4.
That's the Kodos the Executioner, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you have all of that and more.
What I would say, though, is the Federation, the difference is the Federation is not built upon relying on the suffering of children.
Yes.
While there may be children who suffer in the Federation, no one is saying these children must suffer to keep the Federation in its situation.
Right.
Now, they certainly should be doing something about preventing children from suffering altogether. I absolutely agree. And so should our society. But I don't think anyone then in the Federation or anyone in our society, which is clearly what they are, trying to tell us and talk to us about, it's like you just turn away and ignore it, and we choose not to do that. And yes, there's plenty of suffering in our world that we turn away from and ignore. But I don't think, now I'm sure there are some people who would say that our society needs suffering children. Most people in our society would say that it is a tragedy, and that our society is not built upon. Well, built upon is the wrong word, because child labor, as we talked about. But our society does not. The structure of our society does not require the suffering of children. This society, they have to hurt a kid.
Yeah.
And I think that's a difference.
I don't know on that one.
Okay.
I mean, no, our society is not, we don't set out to be like, oh, hey, we're going to use child labor to make sure that we can survive.
Right.
Just survive. Okay. There's the wants of the many, as you said. But certainly, I mean, I know that my Samsung phone was produced with at least some enslaved labor.
My Apple phone as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether it's only the people who in the Foxconn factories who, yeah, okay, they're paid, but it's like, it's such a pittance. They had to put up nets to keep them from jumping out of the windows to commit suicide. Okay.
And they aren't allowed to leave.
Right. Right. So they're serfs instead of slaves. Big difference.
Yeah.
Am I willing to give those things up? I'd like to not have that element in my life. I think most people would like to not have that element in their lives. But there also isn't a lot of way to get around it, in the modern society.
The difference, and it is not a huge difference, I will admit. The difference is our phones don't require slave labor to exist.
True. They could, yes. Yes, absolutely.
And I think most, in general, even a lot of the companies like Apple and Samsung have both said that they are in every way that they can, at least so they say, are trying to prevent this from happening.
You saw the look on my face, yeah.
No. Oh, yeah. So they say.
Right.
Yes, there are no ethical corporations. Let's just put that out there right now.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's a terrible thing that we do all have to wrestle with.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot easier for the 19th century abolitionists in a lot of ways, because there was the idea of we're going to boycott cotton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well there's other fabrics. We're going to boycott sugar. Okay, there's other sweeteners. There was a lot of, and not that we all couldn't live without our phones, but it would make doing business very difficult.
Yeah. Literally any electronics, though, are made in those factories in China. And then beyond that, I talked about lithium.
Yeah.
They all have lithium batteries, and those lithium mines in South America are also rife with human rights violations.
Yeah.
And you cannot function in today's society without devices that use lithium batteries and are manufactured in China. It's just not possible.
This leads me to the big question that's presented here. Is there a society that could exist without a lower class, a working class, a slave or servant class? Is that possible? I think it was Aristotle that said you have to have slaves in order to have people like himself who can think for a living. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing that. But I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think you can have a society without that. I think it is incredibly difficult, and it would require a post-scarcity situation.
There we go.
So, theoretically, the Federation can exist without that. Theoretically.
Theoretically, yeah.
But how many mining planets have we visited in Star Trek?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, dilithium still is scarce.
I mean, presumably they make money. Or do they?
Platinum? Gold press
Whether
platinum.
or not the Federation uses money changes from, episode to episode. But, I mean, presumably deep space miners are compensated for their efforts.
Yes.
But, the guy in the mines on, random asteroid out there that has, is incredibly lonely, it clearly does not have the same quality of life as the people who, have the cushy office jobs on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Or the people on the Enterprise, like Samuel Clemens brings up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't... I'm feeling very pessimistic. Generally speaking, I've been feeling very pessimistic for lots of reasons that have everything to do with politics and society. And the fact that I have background in it, which makes me want to scream. My pessimism says no.
So here's the thing. I think it could, if we live in a sufficiently automated society in which machines can do most of the dirty work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, then of course if the machines become sentient, that becomes a whole other issue. But
Yep.
Automation, I think, will help to get us closer to that kind of society.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. We talk about whether the Federation still has that sort of thing. I saw someone on Twitter say recently, talking about the famous line from Star Trek First Contact, where we've moved beyond the need for material wealth and all that, and that's rich coming from Jean-Luc Picard, a man who has ancestral wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Whose family was apparently rich enough to pay the millions of euros in property taxes for a vineyard that they weren't using for 100 years.
Yeah. Statements like that often come out of people who have a great deal of material wealth.
Yeah.
You don't hear that out of people who don't have material wealth. I never thought of it that way. Of course, we have more context now, but...
Right.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Oh. Ugh. Yeah, there's no answer. Until we have all the machines that can be made to do the labor, but not become sentient.
It's a fine line.
There's potentially, yes.
But of course, what will actually happen there is the machines will do the labor, and then they're like, oh, we no longer have to hire people to do this, and then those people won't get other jobs, and they'll just be...
Yes, actually, case in point lately, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people are out there who are in business saying nobody wants to work, nobody wants to work? Well, no. Nobody wants to work for what you're willing to pay.
Yep.
And also, all of this you can walk into a McDonald's and not actually interact with a human being.
I mean, I prefer that, but that's a whole other thing. It has nothing to do with the fact that I want people not to have jobs, and more that I just don't like interacting with other humans.
Okay, putting aside, yes, the fact that we just don't want to talk to people, because I know exactly what you mean. Just all of this stuff that they were saying, once we have the technology, then people won't have to do these jobs. And of course, there is a...
That's true, but what are those people going to do instead?
Right. There's a judgment to that, too, of the meaningfulness of the labor. Do we need wait staff? Do we need service workers? Yes, of course we do. Okay. And since we do, then it should not be maligned.
Absolutely.
And it should not be something that is not sufficiently paid so that somebody can survive.
There is no job that anyone can have that should not pay enough for them to live on.
Yeah. Yeah. FDR knew that.
Uh-huh.
Francis Perkins knew that. Supply side economics is bullshit. So is trickle down. Anyway.
Yes.
So we were supposed to have all this automation, and then that let people do things that they wanted to do with their lives, or Picard style, we work for the fulfillment of ourselves and our society. Even the Jetsons makes that look to be the case. Even George Jetson has a obnoxious office job, but, you know, it looks like people don't have to... Well, you don't have to be a maid unless you're a quasi-sentient robot.
So I wonder, though, like, they talk about they work for the betterment of society and all that. Mm-hmm. Do they really get enough people joining Starfleet who just want to, like, repair stuff just as their passion? Like, is that... Like, I'm not talking about, like, the captains. Everyone wants to be a captain. But, like, you know, the crewmen that are assigned to, like, you know, clean the holodeck and stuff. Like...
Miles O'Brien.
Well, no, Miles O'Brien, absolutely, that is his passion.
Oh, yes, so that's what I'm saying. That's your example. How many people are Miles O'Brien, yeah.
Yeah, but how many people are Miles O'Brien, and how many people are random crewmen who is here because... Well, actually, why are they here? Because if they don't need to work, why are they working in a job that they don't need? That they don't want to do?
What? Yeah.
Like, I can personally say, while I am good at my job... If I did not have to do my job to live, I would quit my job today.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying. I'm lucky enough to be doing something that I love, and that even if I were suddenly independently wealthy, I probably still would do some teaching.
You probably wouldn't do quite as much as you do now.
God's no. No, I would not be teaching 27 credits between 5 schools. No. So yeah, I guess that's the point, right? I don't know. Then it comes back to, what is Starfleet? You know, and if it's a military organization, then you have to instill discipline, and one of the ways you instill discipline is by making people do menial tasks because they're told to.
Yeah, but they tell us over and over again it's not a military organization.
Right. Here's what gets me. We're off track here, but that's okay. Actually, we're not off track, but it's slightly off track.
Honestly, no, this is the most on track we have been in months.
That might be. This makes me think of, what was his name? The bartender in the TNG episode Lower Decks.
Ben,
okay. Why would anybody choose to be a bartender on a starship?
Well, I imagine, okay, Guinan, I think, chose to be a bartender on a starship.
Okay, Guinan's different, because there's association with Picard, and there's all sorts of, you know, she's the embodiment of the magic black person trope, so that's why she's on the ship. But it is Ben. I stand corrected. I don't know where Jordan came from. Okay. Yeah, so, but like, why? Why did Keiko decide to be a botanist but not be in Starfleet and still be on the Enterprise?
So that also comes to, what are the benefits of not being in Starfleet and being on the ship? Like, does it mean that she then doesn't get, you know, assigned to the holodeck mopping duties and everybody else does?
One would think not, because she's doing her botany.
There has to be some sort of compensation that they're getting out of this. Like, people join the military here in the U.S. The primary reason is... There are 2 primary reasons. One is to pay for education.
Yes.
And 2 is because they can... It's a steady job with a lot of money that they are not going to get in their life situation if they didn't join the military.
Both of which are a path out of poverty.
Yes.
I could jump up on a soapbox and talk about how there's a reason that the military is designed as a path out of poverty, but that's a whole other issue.
Well, yeah, because then the poor people are dying.
Mm-hmm. Right, so that's not the case with Starfleet.
Right, but there has to be some reason that they're doing this.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can take it to a point. You can say, you know, there's fulfillment in whatever work is being done. You know, the ensign who comes in and has to clean the holodeck is on the command track, and this is one step there. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the answer. I don't know. You know, I don't know. None of us know. Isn't that the point? This is one of the reasons why I feel like this is not an episode I would watch often, because I end up on this train of thought that just makes me really sad about what our society is like today, and if we're ever going to be able to get anything near to the hopefulness and the lack of scarcity and all of that we see in the Trek universe.
I really don't see it happening. I would love for it to happen. I don't see that being our future.
No. That's why dystopian fiction is so popular. Let's jump to something else that is related. But there's a resistance movement against this. So all is not lost. The resistance movement includes the biological father, as he says, of the first servant, and members of the guard. I love the dichotomy there, that you think that their purpose is to make sure he stays safe, and in reality their purpose is to make sure that he stays safe until he can be put in the machine, at which point he's injured at best and eventually killed.
Yeah, so I like that the guard that is part of the resistance says, like, what he was doing was to protect him, and he's absolutely right.
He is, and the father's the same way. You know, I thought it was interesting. I realize it's just because it's an hour-long show and we don't need another character, but I want to know where his mother is. What kind of brainwashing has to go on in a society to make parents think that that's okay? You know, and allow their children. Of course, then again, I can cite a gazillion historical examples of that, so maybe I shouldn't ask that question. I hope we come back to these people. I want to know what happens.
I hope so, but I suspect we probably won't.
No, I don't think we will.
That is the downside of the less serialized version of Star Trek.
Yeah. Of course, we wouldn't have had this story probably otherwise, but in a serialized.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will pick it up in a novel. We need novels. We need more novels.
We need a lot more novels.
Yeah.
The novels, we just aren't getting a lot of them lately. We were talking, I think, last week about how there weren't any books. There is the Picard novel coming out this year that we forgot about.
Oh, yes.
There are exactly 2 Star Trek novels that come out this year. There's the Picard novel, and there's the Vanguard novel, and that's it. Because the Strange New Worlds was pushed back to next year.
Yeah. Oh, well.
But yes, give us novels.
What an interesting point that the resistance movement caused us to talk about it for probably 2 minutes. What does that speak to their capacity to do well?
Well, they're not really shown as being all that effective.
No. And for all we know, this is the beginnings of it. You know.
I hope so.
So it doesn't look like it's been a genuine resistance movement, or at least this iteration of it has probably not been going on for generations. That's probably new.
Or maybe that entire colony, like their whole purpose is the resistance.
True. And like we said, we don't know how often the child brain has to be swapped out. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it could be every 100 years for all we know, in which case this is, you know.
Does that make it better?
You know, I was going to ask that. No, I don't think it does.
It doesn't make it worse, but I don't think it makes it better.
It could be every 1,000 years. It wouldn't be any better.
Yeah, you're still basing your entire society on basically torturing someone.
Yeah. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to bring up, because we do have the parallel, because Pike tells Alora about how he knows he's going to die. He would be really depressing to... No, never mind. I was thinking about every time that he's telling a lot of people about how he knows he's going to die, but anyway.
Yeah. Getting drunk with Pike is going to be a depressing situation, yeah. Yes.
Pike and all of the people on the Enterprise are familiar with the concept of voluntarily sacrificing oneself.
Yes.
And the people of this planet are very adamant about how this child voluntarily sacrifices himself. Obviously, that's not the case.
They can't.
Right. And he even stumbles as when he sees, oh my God, that body.
At the very end, he's not even sure. Yeah. And the simple fact is, in the same way that an adult having sex with a child is always rape, because a child cannot consent to that.
Yeah.
A child sacrificing their life is never ethical, because a child cannot make that informed decision.
No. I'm going to caveat that with circumstances like a school shooting.
Okay, yes. But that's different. That's not the same type of situation. In this situation, no, I do not believe a child can consent to that.
No. And so what I'm getting at here, if they had waited until he was however old they have to be, 18, 21, whatever it is, before they're considered adults, does that then make it okay?
It's better. And if they are truly of their own accord deciding to do that, then it's not our place to say they can't do that.
Right.
But it's still not great.
Yeah. And can you say, could one say that is completely voluntary? And I don't think they could, because if you're raised with that.
I don't think, no. You've been raised your entire life told that you need to do this. That's not truly voluntary.
No.
That's you being, it's instilled in you that you have to sacrifice yourself. And that's, no.
Why is this making me think about my time in Catholic school? Okay, so we have been up, down, right, left, and center on the issues of this episode.
Not very right, to be fair.
No, that's true. That's true. Capital R, right. Listeners, we want to know what you think, as always. And you can comment on the Facebook page, and you can tweet at us and all of that. Philosophers out there, whether you're still working on your philosophy major, or I don't know, you're teaching somewhere, if you want to give us some context on the idea of how this is encompassing utilitarianism, if it does at all, because it's the wants of the many, not the needs. So, do we have any canon connections?
Not really that I saw. I mean, we get the information that the prime directive doesn't apply for medical intervention, which
we talked
kind
about,
of. Yeah, but we already talked about that. But other than that, no, not really.
Okay. All right, then. Thad, final thoughts.
This was quite an episode. I'm glad I saw it. I'm not in any rush to watch it again. I probably won't see it again until sometime that I'm watching the whole season. Mm-hmm. But this is a very heavy episode that does a lot of social commentary and is worth watching.
Yes, for sure. It does remind me of a film instructor that I listened to on another podcast on the Majority Report, if anybody cares. He was on the week after the most recent school shooting, the Uvalde shooting, and the host was saying, like, usually we have you come on and we talk about a movie, something interesting, fun to watch, but I feel like we can't do that. And he talked about how important it is to have art that really pushes back, and art that really makes that kind of commentary, that makes you think, that makes you uncomfortable. And I think this is a good example of that. And we do need that. But it was also nice to have something like Spock-a-Muck, because everybody needs a breath too. You can't be all serious all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what makes this episodic nature of Strange New Worlds work so well, is we get such a radical tone shift between episodes, and both are very good episodes for very different reasons.
Yes, and I'm thankful for their existence of both of them. All right, Thad, where can people find you when you're not leaving any stones unturned?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, at Tyrannicus. That's Tyranicus. You can also find me on the podcast that I do with my friend Carl called License to Spiel. That's license spelled with a C like the British, where we talk about the James Bond films. And specifically this week, you can find me on the most recent episode of Weekly Trek with frequent guest Alex Perry.
Awesome.
Chrissy, where can people find you when you're not sleeping with Captain Pike?
I think Jason might have a problem with that. Oh, dear. Okay. In addition to here on Infinite Diversity, you can find me on History with the Szilagys here on BQN, and that's a twice-weekly short history podcast I do with my fellow historian partner, Jason. I'm also happy to chat about all of our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at the Goddess Livia, that's TheGoddessLivia, where I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. And you know what? If we had a list like on Friends, I could put Anson Mount on it. It would be alright, yeah.
Anson Mount's on everyone's list.
Yeah.
Don't forget all of her other great shows on BQN, like Galaxy Class, All Good Things, Mickey's Marvels, Union Federation, and History with the Szilagys. And exclusive for our Patreon members, there's It's Green with Mark White and Amy's Math Moment.
And there's a new It's Green that just dropped, I think, yesterday. So I haven't had a chance to listen yet, but it's an interesting topic.
Previously on BQN. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
Maybe Chekhov was an ensign while the first season was happening, and then he got promoted, and so he got screen time.
Oh, look at you making it all work.
Headcanon.
All right.
He was there on the ship. Maybe he was in the bathroom whenever the camera was on. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mickey's Marvels, a Disney podcast.
He believes in his own purpose. That's basically what it is. He's not a cult leader because he drew a card from a Cracker Jack box. He believed in the god of Amit, and he believed that he was the guy. He was the one, and Amit was the right one to follow. Listen to me, and follow my ways.
Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast.
All very interesting and very, very Star Trek-y to kind of just hit you on the head with a little bit. But at the same time, you would think a advanced society that supposedly has eliminated these things would not so easily fall into that trap of, just another form of bigotry and racism. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, but I get for the purpose of the episode, just hit him on the head that Federation against all this stuff. Eugenics was bad. We don't want to do it again, so we're just going to completely toss it out the window. Can't do it. Sorry, bye.
You will find these and more of your favorite podcasts on BQN.
So, thank you so much for tuning into Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the great show art. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well.
If you want to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at BQN Podcasts, or our show specifically at IDIC Podcast. You can also talk about any and all of the BQN podcasts on our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. On our next episode, we'll be talking about episode 6 of Strange New World's first season, The Serene Squall. Until then, peace and long life. They're the chosen ones.
Yeah, they're the chosen ones, like Anakin. Who has the high ground, though? I mean, really.
Well, they live in floating cities. They definitely have the high ground.
Well, okay, these people, yeah. Getting back to our episode here,